our institution stands on the unceded traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, particularly the Duwamish. We thank them for our continued use of the natural resources of their ancestral homeland. Thank you all for tuning in. Town Hall is proud to be a community-focused organization and a place where we can share and sustain ideas and creativity, even if it means we can't gather in person. I'd like to thank Stuart and Max for appearing tonight to help make that possible. Town Hall will be continuing to produce virtual content this fall, and many of our past talks are available in video or podcast form on our digital media library. Town Hall is adding new events and podcasts every day. Upcoming programs include Eddie Cole with Sean Scott about the history of campus activism's role in the struggle for Black freedom. Kati Borum Chatu with Marcia Smith about how documentaries are inspiring social change. Ebo Barton sharing from their new poetry collection in conversation with Tara Hardy, and many more. Town Hall and the nonprofit community at large have been put under significant strain due to event cancellations and the ever-changing landscape. We hope you will consider extending your generosity to help support us during this difficult time by making a donation by clicking on the donate button at the bottom of your screen or becoming a member. You can make a donation online or text Town Hall to 44321 to give. Our partner booksellers have also been hit by the negative effects of the COVID outbreak and can use your support as well. If you are interested in supporting local independent bookstores by purchasing a copy of the book being presented tonight, please use the link on this live stream page to purchase through Elliott Bay Books. For viewers who want to watch this broadcast with closed captioning, we recommend viewing the stream via our YouTube page. To enable real-time closed captioning, click the CC button in the bottom right corner of the video player. The video will be available for rewatching immediately following tonight's broadcast. Tonight's presentation will be about 60 minutes, including Q&A. Stuart and Max will select questions from those submitted in the Ask a Question field at the bottom center of your screen. You can also vote on which questions will be addressed by clicking the arrow next to the question to upvote it. We cannot guarantee that we'll be able to address every question, but we will try to get to as many as possible. Please keep your questions concise and in the form of a question. Town Hall's work is made possible through your support and the support of our sponsors. Our Arts and Culture series is supported by For Culture, Arts Fund, Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, and Wyncote Foundation Northwest. Finally, Town Hall is a member-supported organization, so I'd like to thank all of our members watching tonight. Max Delsohn is a comedian and writer from Seattle. Their comedy has been featured in 10,000 Laughs, Second City's Breakout Comedy Festival, 208 Comedy Festival, Out of Bounds Comedy Festival, Intersections Festival, and Stand Up NBC. They have published writings in The Rumpus, Cut Bank, The Sonar Review, among other places. They are currently an MFA candidate in creative nonfiction at The Ohio State University. Stuart Getty is a genderqueer writer, speaker, and filmmaker whose work at IDEO, a design and consulting firm, their short film, theyTHEM, a documentary about that frisky pronoun and the brave people who rock it, was seen at Portland Film Festival and Translations, Seattle's transgender film festival. They regularly give talks at South by Southwest, TEDx, CreativeMornings, and elsewhere. Getty's book, How to They/Them, A Visual Guide to Non-Binary Pronouns and the World of Gender Fluidity, is the subject of tonight's talk. Please join me in welcoming Stuart Getty and Max Delsohn.
Oh my God. We're big on your screen now. Yay. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, and thank you to Town Hall for having us. I'm Stuart Getty. That's Max. I'm going to give a quick intro. As you know, I did write a book, but the book has been a journey of about 5 years of making media. So I'll start with a few films that I've made as sort of a slow on-ramp into the world of gender fluidity and gender nonconformity and this pronoun that everyone just loves. And I'm so excited to be here with Max to have this conversation with all of you all. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, Max is a comedian. He's from the PNW, he's from Seattle. So seeing a lot of local Seattle chatter, so really excited to have you here. I guess let's jump right into the films that I've made. You're gonna watch 2 films back to back. The first one is called They, and was made around 7 or 8 years ago, and it's me behind the camera talking to my loved ones, my family, and asking them questions about, I was just coming out kind of to them as using the pronouns. So it's as much as like coming out behind the camera as you can get. And then the second piece will be just the intro to the longer piece, which you can watch on my website. That's about the individuals that do use they, them pronouns and letting them sort of tell their own stories. So let's cue the film clips. Town hall.
What does they mean to me? They means, what does they mean to me?
Have you ever heard of the genderqueer? No.
Except for when my mom told me that you wanted to be called they.
Have you heard of the word they being used for people?
Only through you.
I have a little bit, but mostly through you.
And do you have trouble with it?
I do.
Yeah.
Why?
It just doesn't seem to make sense for an individual, for a single person.
So many people are so confused by it and I think frightened by it. But once they start hearing about it and hearing personal stories, people really quickly, I found, become empathetic.
That's kind of funny because you were both.
Yeah, I mean, we fight for your cause, even though, like, when mom says to me, it's just not something I'm going to put into my language, my vocabulary. I say, well, the more you hear it, the more easily it flows.
Do you think that you can call me they?
I don't know.
I could work on it.
It's not that hard. It's just not that hard. We use it all the time in normal speech when we don't know the gender of a person. And if you start looking for it, you'll see where you do it in your normal speech.
Well, it's a weird pronoun. It's not easy. I've said you're a copywriter, makes something easier. I understand the legal terms, legalese, like why we're taking it on.
It's not weird. It's different.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's weird.
Yeah.
For me not to be able to call you my sister is very heartbreaking. And I don't like doing it. I say sibling to be appropriate to you, but I think of you as my sister, even if you weren't like ever a sister.
It will be difficult to call you they because I only had one child.
It is grammatically correct. It is. There's like absolutely no doubt about the fact that it is grammatically correct. It was the Merriam-Webster Word of the Year in 2015.
Can we ask you questions?
Yeah.
What does Nora think of they?
How do I feel about using they and dating a they? Well, I love you and I love dating you and I love your gender. It just makes sense. Like I've told my friends, like I have friends who have said to me, I'm really worried about getting Stuart's pronouns wrong. And what I've told them is once you meet them, you will be able to tell that, that they is the most appropriate pronoun. Like it makes so much more sense than he or she. And it's just not hard.
I can try. I can call you anything because I think I really know who you are. Okay. And that's more important than what you're calling.
On the way to your seat, you were probably delivered several messages about your gender. Maybe you went to the bathroom with a dress or pants on the door. Maybe thank you, sir, excuse me, ladies, just happened. Maybe pink or blue, man or woman, strong or sensitive. We are given these words before we're even born. These words are everywhere and they have power. They takes that power back, destroying some binary that we made up in the first place.
Gender-neutral pronoun.
Use of they.
Not identify with gender.
Allow journalists to use the singular they pronoun.
My name is Stuart, they is my pronoun, and this is a film about pronouns. Hi, my name is Stuart. I am a genderqueer filmmaker. Thank you for stopping by.
That sounds kind of kinky, you guys.
But
Now? Hi, my name is Bear Michael, and I use they, them pronouns.
My pronouns are they, them, theirs, but I don't mind she, her, if that's what's convenient for other people.
I'm Saturn, and I use they, them pronouns.
Margaret Jacobson. My pronouns are they, them.
they just kind of clicked. I said, oh my God, genderqueer.
My name is Jenny Corona. My pronouns are they, them. I love when people ask pronouns, and especially since I don't necessarily look non-binary the way people expect. So I don't get asked pronouns even by like queer and trans people that often.
I think it's going to be fabulous. I mean, I can dream for all of us in terms of where this is all heading, and I'm just happy that it's here now, and I just see a bright future with all this. And sometimes there's even a few steps backwards, and I kind of feel like maybe that's kind of happened recently with some of the politics in this country. But the genie's out of the bottle on this, and it's not going to ever go back in.
So being able to use they, them pronouns for me allows me to feel more recognized for myself, feel that I'm not being put into this box of male, masculine, bro, dude.
I was made aware that I was doing my gender wrong, and I didn't think I was.
It was like the second I realized I didn't have to use she pronouns, I knew like I couldn't, like I knew it wasn't gonna work anymore.
Cute, I love it. Cool.
I wanted to get that last quote.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I love that. It is very good to see all those trans people's faces. Well, I just wanted to say hello and thank you again, Stuart, for doing this. Thanks everybody watching at home. It's really cool of you to tune in. I want to say too, I watched these videos earlier than this. This is not my first time viewing these videos. But when I first watched the first video with your family, I was really affected by it. And I think part of what I really love about that video is, you know, you're not physically in that video. Like, you don't see you. It's really, you know, you're just showing cis people. And I feel really excited about the idea of like the trans, like cis people through the trans gaze, like as a filmmaker. That's like really exciting. Like, that sounds really cool to me. So I would love to know, like, you know, I want to know about like, this was your first, you know, installment of like what seems like a connected project of these videos in the book. So I'd love to know like what got you started on this first part of the project, but I also would love to know about like the decision to not have yourself in the video, like to not be the trans person in the video being like, this is who I am, like, you know, that moment that I felt like I was expecting, that I feel like mainstream media had kind of primed me to expect, to be like, I'm going to see the they who's going to be like, this is me, you know. So I just love to hear about kind of your process with that.
Yeah. I think it wasn't all the way planned, because I did film some stuff of me on camera for that. And I just kind of loved being, I'd never really had these conversations with my family. And so in some ways it was like the first time I was asking these questions to them. And so for me as a filmmaker, I had this thing between me that like kept me from getting as butthurt by it, because I was like, this is for a project. But it also, I feel like, kept us in a really safe, soft place. I think it's really interesting to concentrate on cis folks through, and I haven't really even thought of it as that deeply, but my book sort of is like a little bit aimed toward like cis folks that really want to learn about it. And I feel like part of it is, that's kind of my mission, is like to be that person that's like, hey, do you want to just ask me the burning question. I mean, we have like the Q&A all set up for you guys. And that's like where the book came from. That's where the pieces came from, was just this like curiosity and keeping it of like, I'm curious what questions come up for them. I feel like we get, there's something I use at work a lot. It's like, get curious, not furious. And it's like, when you get that reaction, you know, like what is it that they're not getting or they're not understanding? And then it sort of was like me telling my story through the people that love me. And then I evolved it into all of these amazing folks that I knew in Portland who, because I mean, in some circles, everyone uses they. Like I'll be in a circle and it's like they. And that's like what I wanted to showcase in that second film was like, we're everywhere. We are 16, we are 50, we are parents, we are children, you know, we are every type of person. So yeah, I like that question a lot though.
Yeah, and I am curious. So these were your friends in the second video, like people you knew personally?
Mostly. Some people were like connected to me through like friends of friends, but most of the people were people that I like called friends and was like, I'd really like to show you, like you're a parent of 2 and you know, you identify as a mom, but you also use they, them. And like, I think that's an interesting story for people to hear. There's like a family that like the kid uses they, the mom uses they, and like, that's a cool story. So it's like, I wanted more than anything just to get like, I don't know, all types of different people. I wish I had more types of people if I had actual money to make it. It was a passion project, but yeah.
Well, I'm curious, like when you like approach these like various non-binary people and were like, will you be in this project? That is very much about like, you know, it is like for, like you said, like a mainly cis audience, albeit like a good-natured, open-minded cis audience. Were people like excited to do it? Were they on board right away? Did they have like, what questions did they have? I'm just curious, like, you know, that like, what did you say? Get curious, not furious. Like, do you feel like everyone had that same, okay, because I personally am not I'm more of a furious, I'm on the furious end of the spectrum generally, so.
I'm like, I say I'm like 80% of the time I'm open for the questions and for the combos. And then there's like 25% where I'm like, Google it, get away from me. So yeah, I mean, I approached some folks that said, no, I don't really want to be in that. Like, I don't. And then other people, the people that said yes and are in it, and I kept it very like, it was kind of, I don't know if you're noticing, but it's all starting from this question of like, what does they mean to you? And so it's like, what does it being around this actual pronoun like mean to you? And like, I was gonna ask you too. But it's sort of like, how has that helped your expression? How has that helped you step into more of yourself throughout your life? Because I feel like that thread, like anybody can get, like trans, cis, like, I think that's like what I'm trying to do with the book and the film is show that like, yeah, this they thing is like, that's my thing. Like for me, I heard about it and was like, cool, like that really clicks. That it's like that last quote. As soon as I knew I didn't have to go by she, like I knew I couldn't anymore, you know? And like, as soon as I knew they was there, I was like, that's what I'm going to do now. And so, yeah, I mean, I think finding ourselves and being able to decide for who we are for ourselves, like everybody, all 65 in the audience, all of you guys get to do that. So that's like, that's the hidden agenda. That's the gay agenda, guys. Express
Watch out.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of brings me to like, I feel like kind of one of my main things that I kept coming back to as I was like reading the book and watching these videos is like, you know, this is a very, you're performing a very specific function with these things. Like you're doing work that like, you know, 9 out of my 10 trans friends will be like, hell no, I'm not doing this. You know, like it's very generous. It's very patient. I mean, I was really impressed by just how thorough and really thoughtful the book is in just like really anticipating and getting in the mind of like, you know, cis people or even somebody that's like maybe thinking of using they pronouns themselves and aren't there yet, like, you know, similar kind of like, oh, what does this mean? Like, why is this important? And I want to know, like, why this is your project. Like, what was like the very first like germinating idea that was like, I want to spend like so much time to really like do this. Like, again, like a very generous, wonderful thing that you've done here.
Totally, like all the emotional labor ever. Yeah. This is a great seg to giving an amazing shout out to Sasquatch Books, which is my publisher, and I had a like very heavily queered up team, including my like main editor is like a lesbian mom. What's up, Hannah? I saw you on there. Holler. Who like, it's, you know, the idea for the book was as much her sort of, you know, germ too, where she was like, this is necessary, people need this. And she is a cis woman, queer cis woman, and she, you know, helped me think of all of the questions, and then we tested it with people who then had more questions of like, oh, this part's not clear, or this is like coming, you know, sensitivity, like this might be sensitive to people, etc. And so it was like a whole process of trying to navigate what are these questions. And I think that's the thing for me, is like, what are these questions and why do we feel like we can't ask each other, and and I'm a designer and a consultant in my day job, and I'm obsessed right now with like designing for belonging and designing for access, because I feel like, yes, we're like us versus them in this world in a way that's like one side's just wrong, right? Like, but I mean, Black Lives Matter, like trans lives matter, like the end. But it's sort of like, if you design for belonging, and I'm like, in some ways, like designing for that one Republican cousin that might hear about it from someone, like I'm trying to like brainwash people to come over to this like light and high vibration side that's really about like all of us getting to be who we want, except if it's racist and homophobic and transphobic, you know. There's a line, but I do really take it as like, I guess a higher mission of being on the earth is sort of like, how do I bring people together? How do I bring, I mean, my book is like illustrated, I put jokes all over it. I used infographics, diagrams. So it's definitely made so that all types of people can access it. And I think it leans a little bit more like that well-meaning cis person that's like, I really want to do this well, and I have questions about grammar, I have questions about when I say, ooh, girl, you know, and like, and so I just like really wanted it to feel like that place where you're like, hey, Max, can I ask you a question? Which is like the worst fucking feeling, pardon my French, is the worst feeling for like a trans person. You're just like, is it gonna be about my genitalia? You know, like, so I think I was trying to create that space of like conversation, and I saw through it of like businesses and schools and, you know, libraries, and there's scripts in the back for like talking to your kid about it. And that's sort of like the heart that I was keeping for it, was like, how do we make it widely accessible when, doesn't it feel like they, them is like this, you know, niche thing, and it's like, oh, I see these signatures on things and like, ooh, but like it feels exclusive and like far away from like my parents who live in Kentucky, who are 70, you know? And so sneakily enough, I was kind of writing this book for them, explaining it to them.
Yeah, totally. And you brought up the part in your book where you are talking about having pronoun conversations with kids, and I really love that part of the book. I took notes on it because you're talking about pronoun circles, which is like such a like it amongst the extremely online trans community. I feel like it is such like a thing that people have really strong feelings about. I don't prefer a pronoun circle, but most people do, like a lot of people do. But I was really touched by like how carefully you considered like bringing up like pronoun circles with kids, and I was just curious, like, how did you write that section of the book? Like, did you have resources, or like, did you have like lived experiences that you were going through? Like, where did you kind of get that stuff from?
Yeah, there was some desk research, and then my editor and team at Sasquatch was talking with teachers and figuring, because I mean, I'm like one person. I'm like one day using individuals. So it's like, I don't know everything for every situation. And even like the thing you're saying, like there's a lot of caveats in the book where I'm like, pronoun circle. Yeah. And then it's like, P.S. people don't like pronoun circles, and you kind of want to ask. And like, there's like queer is this word. And then I'm like, P.S. some people hate the word queer. And so I tried to be as inclusive as possible with that sort of stuff, while also being like, this is my experience, I'm speaking. And like, for me, I just like someone to get it over with, to be like, ask me my pronoun. Like, I know you're wondering, just ask me my pronoun. Like, it's they, like, you're right, you know? Like, so I think that's, yeah. And with the kids, we like worked with some teachers, and I was doing some like desk research, reading a lot about like how that was evolving, because I think teachers went into it like, yes, everyone loves a pronoun circle. And then it turned out that actually pronoun circles for kids can be really intimidating, can feel like, even if they're in a journey of like figuring their self out, like to be put on the spot when you're like so awkward and like your body it's not changing the way you want it to, and whatever, like, you know, just giving, like, the big tip for teachers is like, give them an opportunity to do it anonymously. You know, send out a Google survey. That's like one of the tips, is like, do it before you're in a circle together, and then ask people if they would like their pronoun to be shared. And then if they would, then you can do that labor. If not, then you sort of like grow with them into the comfort. Because in the book, I talk about how like I went by Kate for a long time, but then Stuart as, you know, in these like circles, and then it just sort of took over. You know, I am Stuart, you know, like I became myself.
Yeah, and that actually, so that was something else I wanted to ask you about, is that, you know, early on in the book, you are sort of giving this like personal narrative of your, you know, coming into being non-binary. And I was really curious. Another thing that people have very strong feelings about is like, I will present my story of like why I am the way that I am for like, you know, a largely cis audience. Was that part of the book always like in the book? Did you add it later, or how do you feel? I guess my real question is like, how do you feel about like telling that story?
Yeah, most trans folks that see it, they go, "You dead named yourself on page 2." Like,
right.
You realize that you like gave your dead name as like your introduction to this book, and like that's like, people are like, "What are you doing, dude?" And I'm like, it's I don't have like a bad relationship with where I came, you know, my name is Catherine Stuart Getty, and my middle name has always been Stuart, and my whole family has Stuart as a middle name. And so for me, like stepping into Stuart was like stepping into myself in this bigger way with my family. And so it didn't, you know, it didn't feel as bad as like people that are like, "Oh my God, it says your name." And I'm like, I still have to look at, you know, my birth certificate, my social, all that stuff, you know, that you can't really change, the doctor. But I think there's something powerful in owning it and being like, this is also part of who I am, because I talk about being a tomboy, and I feel like tomboy was like my first gender rebellion moment, you know, of being like, oh, girls are supposed to be like this, but a tomboy gets to be like this. And I was like, you know, like class clown, like, so I don't know, I kind of own it. And I also just really like the story of like, my whole family has the middle name Stuart. And if I do change my name, I'd like to change it to Stuart Getty, so I can stay lined up with them.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel similarly about, I like throw my dead name around all the time, and people are always like, oh, I thought you're supposed to be scared of this. It's like, right. Well, you know, That's why those caveats, and I love the caveats in the book that were like, but also people have different feelings about this. I was like, every moment where I was like, oh, I feel differently than this, like there was always a caveat. I was like, there are people that feel differently than this. So I really enjoyed that. And I kind of want to steal your question of like what they means to you. I think like as you were like, oh, I have that question for you. I was like, oh wow, that's like maybe kind of a complicated answer. I haven't thought of it that way before. Do you have like a way to approach that question?
It's, you know, it's a long road to get there, you know, for me, and the book kind of goes into this of like coming out as lesbian and having to work with that coming out to family in Kentucky, and then sort of, I guess I didn't really even know about it when I was like younger, you know, like I feel like if I had known about they earlier, like I probably would have been like, oh yes, of course, and like my wife says in that first movie, like, yeah, like you meet me and you're like, of course, like that's, you're not a man, you're not a woman, like, you know, it just works. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, it has meant getting to step into something that is different. So there's like a little bit of rebellion and like, you know, anti-establishment, but there's also, it takes you a while to find yourself truly, and that's what they means to me. It's like I found myself, and like I'm so stoked. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah.
Are you gonna answer or no?
Yeah, I can answer. I'm an open book. Yeah, I mean, I like came out as a lesbian initially and like loved it. Like I like lesbian is like my core, most cherished identity. And then I was like, well, testosterone seems cool. and now I like get read as a cis guy most of the time. But I didn't really mean to do that. It just sort of like, I like testosterone, but like butch is my thing, and that's who I am, like in my heart. So I use they to just sort of signal that I didn't transition to like to function as like a man. That's not really what I'm trying to do. I have a butch ethics, I like to say, and I like to situate myself in like a more like lesbian or like lesbian adjacent, I guess, tradition. Yeah. I'm like lesbian plus. One of my friends says lesbians past, present, and future, which I think is really nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's you know, that's my lineage, and I want to stay there. So they is kind of my nod to that, and I'm like not big. You know, I don't really correct when cis people. I get misgendered all the time. People's calling me he, and like it doesn't really bother me. But also like my feeling about for me is like I don't correct cis people because like that is not like my identity as like a lesbian is not important. Like it's not important for me for cis people most of the time, except for like my wife who is cis to like understand that. Like that's something for like my queer community that like recognizes me as like this particular person. And so like if some random like, you know, like if my professor at my school like calls me he, like I don't care. You know, like I'm just like, okay, whatever. That like we're not having the kind of relationship where I need you to see me in that way. But I am definitely in the minority on this amongst my friends. All my trans friends are like, what are you talking about? So don't take what I'm saying as an excuse to misgender all your trans friends, people watching this. But
no, I'm with you. Sometimes the battle's not worth it. And you're just like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Stuart's a she. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just roll on with this transaction here. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we should probably start on your slideshow.
Yeah.
So we have time for everything.
Yes. Let's show this book. Let's show this book we've been talking about. Roll 'em. Oh, yes. Here is a GIF of me made from my promo video. What I love about the promo video, it says, gender is fun. Just have fun with it, you know? And that's like how I think about gender. It's just like, get it, have some fun. So next slide. Yes, I wrote a book. It is called How to They Them, a visual guide to, what does it say? A visual guide to non-binary pronouns and a world of gender fluidity. I'm showing this because Michelle T, Alok Vaidman, and Jinx Monsoon and Eileen Miles are sort of big old heroes of mine. So like this is like, holy shit, y'all. Like this is a big moment for me as a fan person to be like, wow, like Alok is like the most famous they that ever was. And so I feel very touched. Next slide, please. Yes, this is my illustrator Brooke thing. I always would love to give a shout out to her because every time I hated this book, she made me fall in love with it again. So many jokes, so much collaboration, and I am forever in debt to her. So she gets a whole picture. And she also helped me sell this too. This is the original illustration that I gave to Brooke to be like, yeah, something like this. And what she came back to me with was Glorious, which is what helped us sort of pitch this book. All up and down the halls of Penguin, Random House, and Sasquatch books. So this is sort of what opens the book, and it shows you sort of the tone of the voice of like, they it good, gently place your tongue against the inside of your front two teeth, blow until a whistling sound emerges. They it, don't spray it. Now open the mouth to say A, as in the letter A, or the sound Canadians make at the end of sentences. Or like a friend is driving by. So then, yeah, next one. Which I think the Canadian flag on that car is what sold the book through. But try it together, THEY. That easy your mouth, but for your brain, well, a little harder, so don't worry, I got you. And then this is what opens the book. And we put together a little pitch like this, a couple 4 spreads, and put together a book proposal, and we got it. And then it was down for me to start drawing, which is really funny because I'm a writer, but I did draw a lot of stuff. Next, please. I just like to show these to show like just how far the illustrations came, but you'll see this sort of, there's a chicken wing and the outline of Kentucky, which you'll see later and how pretty it looks. And I also like to show the next slide because it was a goal of mine to have page 143, to have a pager shout out of like pager language. I don't know, I'm aging myself, but 143 was I love you. And I really wanted to have a page that had a pager on it and it said 143, but as editor knows, ran out of pages. So this is our look and feel. This is the name tag. You get it. You put your pronouns in your name tag. Got it. Awesome. So let's dive in a little bit more. There's the book cover again. This is like we're diving in. Big thanks to Sasquatch and big thanks to Brooke. Next page. So yeah, it starts with the story of me, which is sort of like a little bit of vulnerability, but I think it like, there's the chicken wing and the horse. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. There's the dead naming, Catherine Stuart Getty. Kentucky's known for horses, good bourbon, fried chicken, not gay stuff. But boy, was I gay. It was in me all along, not feeling quite female or male, not like the other girls. Growing up in Kentucky, I was a tomboy, a weird little kid. So think of bowl cut, buck teeth, skin meals. And then it talks about, tomboy gets to be this different kind of girl, which is kind of like gender freedom. Next page. Love this drawing, Stuart 0, church clothes 0, or 1, because I don't know how many like trans and gender non-conforming people there are on here, but if you ever had to go to church, you never got to dress your gender for it. So like to give a shout out for the salmon libbies that I threw across the room because I did not want to wear them. So just giving like a little bit of intro of like where I came from. Next slide. This is sort of the journey, feminist, lezzing out, armpit hair, tie-dye, Birkenstocks, happy trails. Very much still have a happy trail, very much wear tie-dye and Birkenstocks. In fact, it's odd that I'm not wearing tie-dye. This is sort of talking about that transition that I went through, sort of like, how do I become, I was going by Kate, how do I go by Stuart? So it started like a mullet, like Kate in the front, Stuart in the back, party all over. And then the more I did it, I am Stuart. So next slide, please. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember those like sketch trees at first, but this is what this turned into. And it, to your point, was talking about pronoun circles. And that's like where I learned and heard they for the first time. I was at a weird hippie commune thing in the woods, and about 75% of the people in the circle were theys. And I was like, oh my God, is that me? So next slide. And it's just sort of like, I like to put in jokes. I really like the word weird. So there's sort of this like moment where I talk about weird, and I think of weird as a compliment, and it's a weird pronoun. It feels weird, pain in the butt sometimes, but it's so worth it to be able to be who I am. Next slide, please. But I mean, I love this sort of thought of like, weird is okay, weird is good. Weird means growth is happening. Weird is what pushes us to our edges so we can stretch and grow and be more. And I truly, truly believe in this. Next slide. Yeah, so kind of leaning into everything as a journey, and you know, place to learn, place to talk openly. This is what I'm trying to create with the book. So it's open, curiosity, love, you know, hippie blue. Yeah, but you know, we do break stuff down really, you know, simply, very accessible. So there's a part in the front called They 101. It's all these questions that I actually got from employees, friends. I put it on my Facebook. I got hundreds and hundreds of questions from people and culled it down to like the stuff that kept coming up. So I put in like a smattering of some of these questions and some of the stuff that we cover. So next slide, please. We start with the big three. What are the big three? Sex assigned at birth, gender identity, and sexual orientation. If you can get those three things, you are pretty much going to understand this. So sex assigned at birth, not to be confused with sobs, cool cars. I don't know if anyone here knows a sob, but I love a sob. So that's like the structure for sort of how we break down everything, just to show you like access. We're trying to make it easy for people to understand. Next slide, please. So this goes into sex assigned at birth. Had to fight really hard to get that peen on that page. Just being honest. But we used to think this is what was going on. So it's just kind of like challenging what everyone says. Yeah, but what's the difference between sex and gender? And it really leans into it. So it's like, this is what people think it is, but the next slide is like, nah, like it's so much different. So it kind of gives you like this stepping into it of like, I was assigned female at birth. My brothers were assigned, you know, male at birth. This is what sex means. This is biological sex. It's not as simple as we thought. You know, this is how we thought things were, but it's not. So next slide kind of shows this is what's going on. Like external anatomy can look at a bunch of different ways, internal anatomy, hormones, chromosomes, and I actually go into each of those about like what are different ways that people show up that is intersex or is, you know, a female with really high testosterone. Like just opening that you know, Pandora box of like, there's so much freedom for how people actually show up anyway. We're the ones who put them into those boxes. And then, you know, also fought really hard for that vest with the shirt off under it. I called it a shirt vest. That was a contentious point. But yeah, so I talk about, you know, there's other variations that exist. Turner syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, Gossip Girl, XOXO. Like definitely try to get humor in there, try to get like personality. And I'm so glad that the vest with the chest hair is still in there. I just am. Sorry, Hannah. Also had to fight really hard for this peen, but this is sort of a shout out, which is actually pretty appropriate because I'm calling in from California, which is on fire because of a gender reveal party. And so this is sort of like hot tip. Gender reveal parties are not great. They're considered transphobic to people because at that point, all you know is the junk that your child has. So congrats, it's a peen. Kind of like leaning into the comedy of that moment instead of like the shame of it. But really glad that this peen also made it in, yay. Next slide, please. Yeah, another hot tip is, you know, I really like this one of like, this is kind of like those little warnings on plastic bags. It's like, this is not a toy, don't put it over your head and breathe. It's a warning that's there because people do it all the time, so please stop asking trans people about their junk. Just really love getting that message in there. I would love a t-shirt that said that. I also love to throw in like my first drawings and then show like what they became. But this is, you know, people who use they can look all sorts of different ways. And I'm actually quite pleased that the pigtail on the top right, the pigtails and the goatee with length actually stuck around. So pretty stoked about that one. So this is Brooke's stuff, obviously, but making that point of like, who can use they? Trick question. Everybody can, and they can look all sorts of ways. So there's also a section about do's and don'ts. Do ask pronouns. Don't call them preferred pronouns. There was a phase of calling them preferred pronouns. We're past that phase. It's not what I prefer. It's what I am. Another is, you know, putting them on your name tags and email signatures to get it out there. But this is a point that I like to bring up at my work a lot. It's like, don't just do pronoun talk in a room that I'm in. Like, do it when I'm not there so that I would be safe in that room too. Because if I'm not in the room and you're still doing, you know, stuff to protect gender nonconformity, think about when I'm in the room, I'm going to feel so safe. So do's and don'ts is a section. Next slide, please. And this was a question that I kind of alluded to earlier. Like, hey girl, what's up boy? Like that kind of language. And just really going into, it's all about the intention for me and my circles, but then people do get really offended if you say guys and they don't want to be a guys. And it's really just good to like read the room and to think about how that stuff is landing. And then this also gives you some, you know, some replacement words. Instead of ladies and gentlemen, people, peeps, friends, folks, y'all, you, fam, boys and girls, kids. Whoa, hey. Darkness. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Fantastic. Yeah, so, I mean, like you said, I'm trying to really walk people through it. So this one is one of the biggest tips. This is the hottest tip in the book is like, what do I do when I mess up? Fix it and move on. Let life keep living. And also say thank you. Don't say, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Say thank you. Thanks for fixing my mistake. I will try harder. But also it's like, correct it, move on. I believe in you. You can do it. And I believe in all of you. You guys can do this. One question is, what do you do when someone says you're in the wrong bathroom? Well, technically, I'm a they, so both bathrooms aren't so great. So I would be in the wrong bathroom. And if it's a one-holer, it's probably small, and that's why are you in this small room with me? I love this illustration. That's why this one's in there. Just a few more slides. Also wanted to bring up stuff that people don't know about, like the TSA actually, I don't know if people know this, but as you're going through that thing that you put your hands up, they clock you at pink or blue. And so for trans and gender nonconforming people, we get patted down quite a bit because people press the wrong thing. And so the next slide kind of goes into the story of I was coming back from Kentucky and, you know, the lady's like looks at me, doesn't know to push pink or blue, looks at her friend, he doesn't know. Everyone's like, huh. And then I said, push pink, because I had heard about this. And, you know, they're in embarrassed Kentucky accent. They're like, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry, darling. I just couldn't tell. And, you know, me either my whole life. So I go into some of the stuff that sucks for, you know, trans and gender nonconforming people, just to let you know that, like, some things that are really easy for other folks, like TSA, drop-down menus that only have male and female in them, etc. You know, these are things that on the daily like piss us off. So get everyone in on knowing that these things suck, and then we can change them. But I think this is sort of like the thesis statement of the whole thing is that it's more than just about pronouns and grammar lessons and arguments about the bathroom. This is about freedom of expression and the human right to choose for oneself how to identify oneself. And while they might be only for some, that freedom's for everyone. You just have to grab it. So let's do it. And I also, next one, this is my last page in my actual book, and this is a message to trans folks. You are not alone, and we are sacred. Just a little bit of a reminder, because that's not necessarily the message that we get all the time. So, and then peace. That's actually the last page of the book, is a peace sign, which I didn't get the pager in, but I did get the peace sign.
Yes. Love it. Okay, so now we are going to go into the Q&A section of the broadcast. So for folks watching at home, if you go to ask a question, you can go ahead and type something in, and then I will read it, and we will ask Stuart. So let me see what we've got so far. Let's see. So Aaron Sloan Gomez asks, hey, Stuart, did you try on other options before they, like Z or Zir? If so, what made you decide not to use those options and choose they, them? Thank you.
I didn't try anything else. I will admit, when I first started leaning into it, and there was all this pushback about grammar, and I am a writer by trade, and I was like, is there something better? Is it, and like Zir is actually really a lot harder for people to get than they. My favorite is actually Fae Fair, and in a fairy community, like that's something that a lot of folks use. That's in the book too. It's like 3% of the global population uses Fae Fair. I have not tried any because my journey was like, oh my God, they like just fits. But I do think that we will continue to evolve this, and I don't know if they is going to be the end all be all, So
cool. Yeah, I like Z a lot. I thought about it briefly. I feel like all the cool trans masc lesbian type people that are more a couple generations before me used it, and lots of writers I really liked use Z, and so I was like, oh man, I think I just had maybe I was like, oh, I don't know if I can pull this off. I don't know if that's me, but yeah, I think Z is really cool.
Yeah.
And people I definitely know people who still use it.
Yeah.
But it's not as common for sure. But
it was tricky even for me to sort of figure out how to ask for it. But yeah, it was sort of second wave, third wave feminism that really was yes. And I love the spirit behind it, which is it's a word that doesn't exist. It gets to take it on its own meaning, because you saw my mom, she's like, it's really hard. I can't do this. This is a hard thing to do. And I have compassion for those folks that are 75 years old, learn this grammar lesson, and it actually doesn't click for them. But if I was okay, mom, try Z, Zir, she might just be I don't know, honey. Yeah. Eyes get real big.
Okay, let's see. It looks like we have. This is from an anonymous. No. This is from Hillary. So Hillary asks, Stuart, I'm curious how you take care of your physical body and manage stress. Do you rollerblade for real?
It's a great question. Of course I do. I would be so, yeah. Actually, a little crew of friends and I, we at age 37, which 2 years ago for me was we were yeah, let's take up skating. And so we started this little crew that goes to, I live right by Mills College, which is all smooth and paved, and we all go shred. And I love calling it shredding because rollerblading is really dorky to people who skate. And so we have a joke that we call ourselves the fruit booters, which is or gay, or just gay, because those are the you're a rollerblader, you're a fruit booter, you're gay. So we're we'll take that, we'll own it, we'll take it back. But I really love rollerblading, and it's all over the book. I was really into it when I was writing the book, and I'm more into swimming now, swimming in Crocs, but the book's all about Birkenstocks and rollerblades. So I guess I have to write a new one that is more up to date. Yeah.
So you're saying fruit booting is I've never heard that term before.
Fruit boot?
Yeah.
When I was younger, I hung out with like skater boys and and I also was a rollerblader, not a skateboarder.
Okay.
So they think you're a poser, and they just call you gay. Like when you're younger, you're like, oh, you're gay. You're a fruit booter. I like the idea of us making like little jean vests and like it says fruit booters, and we're all like a queer like rollerblading gang.
I know. I was like, fruit booting sounds like maybe a roller derby team name,
right?
In the making. Yeah.
I know. I mean, it's funny. Like the most recent time I went skating, by like in Oakland on the shore, like we did get not yelled at, laughed at. Like someone was like rollerbladers, and I was like, wait, rollerblades are like coming back. Just P.S. if you want to learn something else during this talk, is that rollerblades like market share is up, and that if you look at the Embarcadero in San Francisco, there's rollerbladers everywhere. Like it's a trend, and I didn't really even know that. I just was like, I used to skate when I was like little, and I don't know if you've skated as an adult, but it feels so good. It's smooth. You're cruising. Yeah, it's a rollerblade right there. See?
I swear that I literally was telling my wife 2 weeks ago that I wanted to buy rollerblades. So anecdotal evidence that Stuart is right about this.
Yes. Yes. It's funny. My friend saying that Adam Sandler is like who was responsible for killing rollerblades sales back in the day, because he was like made fun of it, but they're back, and I'm glad for it. Glad
Whatever, Adam Sandler. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question here. Zachary asks, what are some ways that you have learned to balance / manage the tension between sharing about yourself to educate people and taking care of yourself?
That is a tremendous question, honestly. Admittedly, not amazing at it all the time, like any human that's figuring it out. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've been able to realize like the difference between this is a really good conversation to have, and I'm like helping someone grow versus like I'm just spending all of my energy. I think, like I said, I swim in the ocean most days here in the Bay, and it brings me to a centered place that is, I mean, I'm in a global pandemic right now, and also the revolution, and my state's on fire. So it's like on top of all that, if someone's like, can you tell me about this gay thing that you're doing? It's like you have to do something to come back to like body and center, and I think it's like a mix of like being spiritual and thinking about it as like a higher mission of bringing people to like more believing and more of a higher vibration, but also knowing when, I've been doing a lot of work about like boundaries and like when I don't have to go home per se because it might be painful, or if I don't have to like go and try to be in that conversation. Like, I think that's a life lesson for people to learn, but I definitely am in that journey right now of like when to say no. Be like, Google it, dude. Yeah.
That is a lifelong lesson for sure. So if anybody wants to ask one last question, I think we have time. While we just give people a second, I had a question that I wanted to ask, and we can end on this if nobody else has any other questions. I know we've talked about cis people a lot tonight, but I wanted to ask, what would you say to anybody who's watching this who is considering starting to use they, them pronouns for the first time?
Yay! You're beautiful. You're sacred. It's so good it's so good to bring more gender nonconformity into the world, because I think I would just want to hold that baby in my arms and tell them that they are so wonderful, and that they're so brave, and like the fact that more and more young people are able to like find themselves sooner and sooner. I didn't find myself till I was 30, you know, and so I'm assuming that this person's a young person. It could be a 40-year-old, and I'll still hold them and cradle them in my bosom. But I mean, I think that's like the main thing is, I don't know about your coming out experience, but both times with being a lesbian and then also using they, it was not great. Like it was rocky. And so I think if there's any way that I can validate that this is an awesome thing to do with your life, that, you know, you can write a book about it and people will like read it, you'll get on cool panels, like just like showing that this is just something that people are, and that I think that's a lot of holding, as I said, just a lot of holding and cradling, and being like, maybe like a little parade, you know, like the trombone. Really proud of you for being a they. Da, 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 da. Yeah, something like that. Celebration. Yeah.
Well, I think that is the note to end the evening on, I have to say. That feels like what I want to go into the rest of my night with. So thank you so much, Stuart, for talking with me. This is really fun. And thank you, Town Hall, and everybody for being here tonight. This has been really fun, and I'm so glad to virtually connect with all of you.
Yes.
And
big thank you, Max. Big thank you.
And thank you, Stuart and Max, for joining us this evening. We wish we could have had you here in Seattle, but this is a lovely event, so thank you for being with us. And thank you, everybody else, for tuning in this evening. If you enjoyed this event, you can find many more like it on our website, townhallseattle.org. We hope you'll consider making a donation, as your support will allow us to continue to do events just like this one. If you are interested in purchasing a copy of Stuart's book, How to They Them, a visual guide to non-binary pronouns and the world of gender fluidity, please use the link on this live stream page to purchase through our friends at Elliott Bay Book Company. And again, thank you all for being here. Have a great evening.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.